Good to see Doug Burgum there on the right. Democrats are enlisting Elmo and Big Bird as they continue to wage war on DOGE, staging a massive protest, literally 3 people, this morning in front of NPR. By the way, NPR stands for Not Pooping Regularly, which is why, what's his name, Scott Simon, always sounds constipated. Anyway, this comes as President Trump convenes his cabinet to talk shop on the cost-cutting crew that saved taxpayers $105 billion and counting. Elon also in attendance. Here's what 47 said about the meeting.
I want the cabinet members to keep good people. I don't want to see a big cut where a lot of good people are cut. I want the cabinet members to keep the good people, and the cabinet members go first. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
But a Columbia professor claims cutting waste is racist, all because the coconut lady lost.
Yes, it's an attack on government, but it's also an attack on this government. What I mean by that is it's an attack on this government that used to be headed by a black man. It's an attack on this government that almost elected a black woman to the highest office in the land. It's an attack on a government that has been more welcoming and more supportive of people who have come to this country in search for a better life.
All right, Harold. This is the point I was making. That as long as you have a contingent in your party that says everything is racist, you can't build your brand unless you split it off and you have an everything is racist party and the Democrat Party, because he seems to forget that you had a white president. His name was Joe Biden. Senile, but white.
Yeah, I don't think the cuts are racist, and I know, but he's a friend. I don't think he's. If he said that, I don't think he's right about that. What I do think is, and I've said on the show, there are no advocates for waste and fraud and abuse. If there are, they're certainly not. I don't consider them Democrats. I consider them people who enjoy waste, fraud, and abuse, and their ideas should not be the ones that rule the day. Having said that, I think you can also be critical of the way that the administration is going about some of these things. But when you poll, as Dana and the judge have said routinely around the table, people err on the side of the cutters or the DOGE effort than they do on Democrats saying, don't do it. So if the president and Mr. Musk believe that USAID, and I read a story today that the Department of Education was going to be executive ordered out, and I saw a story that said President Trump decided not to do that. I do think if President Trump does executive order out, meaning he bans or dismantles the Department of Education, I think you'll see a different kind of response. But I'm for DOGE, as I've said, the spirit of it. I don't like all the cuts. And Democrats who don't like the cuts they're making, here's a novel idea. Come up with your own. If you believe that we should reform government like Bill Clinton and Al Gore believed, like Barack Obama did, then come up with your own ideas as opposed to just trying to dismantle the entire idea or poo-pooing on the entire idea.
Poo-pooing.
My kids are not going to like me. I'm sorry, Hef and George, you don't like me when I use that word.
Poo-pooing?
Poo-pooing.
All right, that's an interesting.
Neither does Jesse. He don't like it either. But he won't.
So, Dana,
I'm a strict parent.
Writer Joshua Lysick says that a bad review by a bad person is a good review. So whenever you hear this criticism of DOGE, it means it's good.
So it's like a double negative.
A double negative.
I see. I got it.
Not like a double negative.
In the 5 stages of democratic outrage, everything we are mad about is racist usually comes a little bit later, but it's here now. This is one thing I would say about that. And I wasn't planning necessarily to bring up education, but I'm glad Harold did, because we have the record low test scores for America's children, and no Democrats talking about it. No one's talking about it. Are they saying that we should have more money at the Department of Education? What are the outcomes you are getting for that? As my former boss used to call this, especially at the inner city school levels, but now in rural schools as well, that it's the soft bigotry of low expectations. And the thing about this is you have a Department of Education that is really catering to a lot of different things that it might not necessarily need to exist, because the things that people say they like about the schools, for example, the pre-K program, that's not done through Department of Education. That's over at the Health and Human Services Department. You care about school lunches? You want kids to have school lunches? What about school breakfast? Great. Well, call Brooke Rollins. She's at the USDA. You care about military schools? That's Pete Hegseth is now in charge of that. So a lot of these things, like student loans. why couldn't that be done at the Treasury Department? It's the bureaucracy and all these administrators and all the DEI stuff that was happening that was not getting you to the results that you need to get so that you could actually overcome.
You
Yeah, thank
humiliated
you.
Harold over there.
Can I say something? Well, I'll say it at the end. I'll say it at the end because I rarely ever disagree with Dana. But here's where I disagree. I actually think we have to have a Department of Education that's 10 times size than one we have now. We centralize the things that we value the most. Local governments have screwed up education more so than federal governments have.
Point of order.
They spend more money on it. They have more responsibility. And this, I'm not saying they're bad people.
No.
They just haven't
Well, let me give you an
managed it right.
example, though. Today, I interviewed Dr. Cade Brumley. He is
No.
from Louisiana.
Nerd
He said-
debate.
Yes, no, but he is from Louisiana. Guess the only state to improve in reading in the last 4 years was Louisiana.
You know why? Because they really
Why?
sucked beforehand.
Why?
I don't
Yeah, why?
They
were
did,
really
and they
low
said, we don't
beforehand.
want to suck anymore. So they said, guess what? We're going back to basics. We're doing phonics. He said, we do flashcards for math.
I
They went
love
back.
that.
But that's not the Department of Education.
but
And I asked him, are you okay if it goes away? And he says, yes,
But
give
then-
me the money. I can do better.
Leadership is saying when something works, scale it, and when something doesn't work, scrap it. I think the federal government should have a bigger role with local
gosh.
partners. That's just me, because our schools suck.
They
If you believe that, and you know where the responsibility is, it's at the local level.
Oh, really?
We need a different
it's a
approach.
federal bureaucracy, but it's the local level's fault? Is that what you're saying?
Judge, look at the amount of money and look at where the responsibilities in education. You can do that in the commercial break, then you can beat
I
me
see
up
what
all
you're
you want.
saying.
Yeah, we'll
It's
do it in a
all at the
commercial
local. You see
break.
what I'm saying, Dana?
I do see what you're
You
saying.
may not agree, but that's the point I make. I didn't mean
And
to
I don't
hijack
agree.
your thing, but since we got going on it.
It's all right. I like the fire in your eyes, Harold.
Me too.
Yeah, boy, wow. Smoky in
Over
here. Judge,
education.
continue bashing Harold for me.
Look, I think the problem with this whole thing, and by the way, you know what? Jimmy Carter, I think I've said this before, created the Department of Education with an executive order. So Donald Trump taking it out with an executive order, I think is very appropriate. And I honestly believe that what happened, especially during COVID, and the loss of learning that our kids have suffered and will never make up for in the next generation, while kids in other countries were doing, studying quantum physics in China and Russia, is really a result of the federalization of the education. If it were left to the locals, that would not have happened, because I'm telling you, schools in North Carolina, schools in Alabama, they wouldn't have been closed for this. Let's get a metric where COVID is, our kids are protected. But that's not the issue. The point I want to make on this segment is this. 2020, George Floyd, all this super woke stuff, gave these people like this Columbia professor, and imagine what the hell what he's telling your kids that you're paying $90,000 a year for if he tells you that, DOGE is racist because Obama was a black president. I haven't made the connection yet, but they think that they beat Trump because Trump was a racist. But the truth is, the mistake they made was believing that racism was going to take them through the next 4 years. And they acted in 2024 like it was still a racist country, when it's not. And people didn't believe Donald Trump was a racist. And so they doubled down with Kamala as a candidate, thinking that this racism claim that this professor from Columbia, who may be a friend of yours, is making no sense on, is going to be the strength of the Democrat Party. It's over, all of this nonsense. It's over.
So, Jesse, we have completely skirted over the main topic of this story. In the beginning, we saw Ernie with Big Bird, but not with Bert. And as we know, Ernie
Trouble
and
in
Bert have
Paradise.
been together in a monogamous relationship for quite some time. Actually, no, is that the Cookie Monster?
That is.
No, that's
That's
Elmo.
Elmo.
That's
And
Elmo.
that's Count Dracula.
You'll
And
learn
that's
this
Big
in a
Bird.
couple
That's
years.
And that's
Yeah,
Big Bird.
Big Bird.
So, is this a throuple?
This is Iraqi Sesame Street, right?
Yes, I want to know, is this a throuple?
Yes, this is a menage a trois. This is a furry menage a trois. And I just want to see Harold and Dana fight.
Yeah. That
will
was
never
fun.
happen.
Back at it.
That was
And that will
fun.
never happen. It was.
And another thing.
It was like an episode of Moonlighting.
Yeah,
Will they or won't they? Will they or won't they?
Oh my God.
That is
a commercial break.
that is a reference that only our audience gets. 80s, right? I mean, 1980s.